In the dawn of time, when the cosmos was still a formless abyss, a being of immeasurable power rose from the primordial mists, the god of night, discord and change, Tezcatlipoca. His skin was as black as obsidian, echoing the darkness of the void, and his eye was a smoky mirror, revealing the most obscure secrets of the human soul. According to the Aztecs, the universe was not a static place, but a stage for a cosmic drama constantly in motion, based on the belief that the world had been created and destroyed several times. Each cycle, or sun, was ruled by a different god and ended in catastrophe, opening the way for a new cycle. As the god of change and transformation, Tezcatlipoca played a crucial role in this cosmic drama. He was the first to don the mantle of the sun, ushering in the first age of the world, known as Huitzilopochtli, the age of the jaguar. In this primordial era, Tezcatlipoca ruled supreme, shaping the world according to his will. He brought forth the first living beings, the giants, who inhabited the earth. These were colossal creatures with voracious appetite and extraordinary strength. They fed on roots and wild fruits, and their footprints were so profound that they formed lakes and mountains. When Tezcatlipoca reigned, the world was a wild and untamed place where nature reigned supreme. While Tezcatlipoca prevailed over the first world, a new force was rising on the cosmic horizon: the feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl. Unlike Tezcatlipoca, Quetzalcoatl was the god of life, wisdom, and order. He was the patron of craftsmen, farmers, and priests, the master of words and writing. He was portrayed as a serpent covered in green feathers, a symbol of fertility and renewal. The conflict between the two gods came to a head when Quetzalcoatl challenged Tezcatlipoca for world domination. The ensuing battle was a cosmic cataclysm, a titanic confrontation between order and chaos, light and shadow. With his cunning and wisdom, Quetzalcoatl managed to knock Tezcatlipoca out of the sky, turning him into a raging jaguar. Tezcatlipoca's fall marked the end of the age of the jaguar and the beginning of a new one. Now a bloodthirsty jaguar, Tezcatlipoca's wrath was vicious. He unleashed himself on the giants, devouring them one by one. The earth shook, volcanoes erupted, and the sky was dyed red. The devastation was total, and the first world came to an end in chaos and violence. The destruction of the first world and the fall of Tezcatlipoca taught the Aztecs a profound lesson: the importance of balance. His reign, marred by brute force and arrogance, led to destruction and chaos. The intervention of the god of order and wisdom, Quetzalcoatl, restored the cosmic balance, but at a dreadful cost. Despite the destruction, hope had not been quenched. The god of life, Quetzalcoatl, survived the catastrophe, and with his wisdom and power, established a new world, the second sun, which would bring with it new challenges and opportunities for humanity. After the Aztecs destroyed the first world, the god Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, rose as the creator god of the second sun, Huitzilopochtli, the age of wind. With his knowledge and power, he shaped a new era, distinct from the previous one. The god of wind, Huitzilopochtli, donned the mantle of the sun, ruling this world with his stormy and unpredictable nature. Howling winds scattered the earth, and violent storms became widespread. Life here was a constant struggle, requiring adaptation and resilience. Once the first world had been destroyed, Quetzalcoatl, with his great wisdom, raised a new breed of human from maize, the sacred food that would nourish life. Differently from the giants, this new humanity was smaller in stature, but more resilient and adaptable. Equipped with intelligence and ingenuity, they learned to cultivate corn, build shelters to protect themselves from the relentless winds, and live in harmony with the unpredictable nature of the Wind Age. The new humanity was noted for its ingenuity and adaptability. They developed cultivation techniques to help make maize, the staple of their diet, thrive, and built houses that were resistant to the strong winds typical of this era. They learned to interpret the elements of nature, anticipating storms and adapting their activities accordingly. This ability to adapt and be resourceful was a core trait of the new humanity, allowing them to thrive in a hostile and unpredictable environment. Moreover, the new humanity brought about by Quetzalcoatl was gifted with a deep connection to the divine. They acknowledged the importance of maize as a gift from the gods and held rituals and offerings to thank and honor this sacred gift. This spirituality based on nature and gratitude was a distinctive mark of the new humanity, distinguishing it from the hubris and disrespect displayed by the Jaguar Age giants. The god of night and discord, Tezcatlipoca, watched the prosperity of the new humanity with growing bitterness. The feeling of his previous defeat still corroded his heart, feeding his thirst for revenge. He could not bear the thought of Quetzalcoatl triumphing and a new race of humans prospering on a world he considered his own. In a fit of spiteful fury, Tezcatlipoca transformed himself into a relentless wind, more ferocious and devastating than anything seen before. Colossal storms raged, sweeping across the land with unprecedented force. The wind howled like a crazed beast, uprooting trees, smashing houses, and spreading chaos wherever it went. Astonished by Tezcatlipoca's fury, humanity struggled desperately to survive. Some sought safety in caves and shelters, while others tried to placate the enraged god with offerings and sacrifices. But the rage of Tezcatlipoca was relentless. He would settle for nothing less than the utter destruction of the new humanity. In a cruel act, Tezcatlipoca turned humans into monkeys, a symbol of his degradation and humiliation. Although there was widespread destruction, some humans managed to escape Tezcatlipoca's wrath. They changed into other animals, such as birds, fish, and reptiles, seeking refuge in the wilderness. These survivors would take with them the memory of the Age of Wind. It was an abrupt and tragic end to it. The god of the wind, Ehecatl, was overthrown from his sun-like position, and most humanity, transformed into apes, was scattered across the earth. Tezcatlipoca's fury left a path of destruction and chaos, marking the end of yet another cosmic cycle. The collapse of the second sun was a brutal reminder of how fragile existence is, and the constant threat of chaos. When the second world had been destroyed, the god of rain, Tlaloc, rose as the third sun, Nahui-Huahuitl. During his dominion, the earth flourished and life prospered. The fields were irrigated with steady rains, rivers overflowed with fish, and harvests were plentiful. With the start of the Age of Rain, Quetzalcoatl, in his boundless wisdom, shaped a new humanity from maize, the sacred food that would nourish life. As opposed to the giants who inhabited the Age of the Jaguar, this new human race was smaller in stature, but more resistant and adaptable to the climactic circumstances of the new era. Equipped with intelligence and ingenuity, they learned to grow maize, ensuring their prosperity, and built shelters to protect themselves from the unforgiving winds that swept across the land. They also managed to interpret the signs of nature, predicting storms and adapting their activities to suit, displaying a remarkable capacity for resilience and survival in a hostile environment. The plentiful food provided by the rain god Tlaloc allowed agriculture to flourish. Maize, beans, squash, and other crops were planted over vast areas, ensuring the prosperity and happiness of the new humanity. Yet this abundance also brought with it a challenge: complacency. Having grown accustomed to the bounty of the earth, humans began to neglect their rituals and offerings to the gods, neglecting to honor those who provided them with life and prosperity. This ungratefulness did not go unnoticed by Quetzalcoatl, who watched humanity with growing disappointment. The harmony between humanity and nature, nurtured so diligently, was threatened by arrogance and a lack of gratitude, heralding challenging times for the Age of Rain. Instead of gratefully appreciating the abundant food, humans indulged in gluttony and waste. Music and dance, once ways of expressing their devotion to the gods, became mere pastimes devoid of spiritual meaning. Quetzalcoatl's anger grew every day, fed by humanity's ingratitude and lack of respect. He saw how people were drifting away from the principles he had taught them. The harmony he had worked so hard to achieve was being destroyed by humanity's arrogance and lack of gratitude. Given this situation, Quetzalcoatl made a painful but necessary move: to send a catastrophic flood to punish humanity and purify the world. Once a source of life and prosperity, the rains turned into merciless floodwaters. Rivers burst their banks, lakes expanded, and water covered the earth, swallowing everything in its path in a great deluge. Houses, crops, and whole cities disappeared under the raging waters, as if nature was taking revenge on those who had disrespected it. Standing alongside the chaos and destruction, Quetzalcoatl watched humanity drown in its own arrogance and ingratitude. The flood was a divine punishment, a way of purifying the world and allowing humanity a new chance to start again. Yet the destruction was so severe that only a few humans managed to escape, turning into fish to survive in the deep waters. The Age of Rain ended in a cataclysmic flood. Once a lush green paradise, the Earth was transformed into a vast ocean. The formerly prosperous and abundant humanity was whittled down to a small group of survivors. The demise of Tlaloc and the end of the third sun heralded the end of an era and the beginning of a new cycle. Following the annihilation of the third solar cycle, the goddess of fresh waters, rivers, lakes, and oceans, Huitzilopochtli, emerged as the fourth sun, Nahuatl. She was the wife of the rain god Tlaloc, and together they ruled the watery kingdom. Huitzilopochtli was a powerful and kind goddess, associated with beauty, purity, and fertility. Her looks were like those of jade, the Aztecs' most prized gemstone, and her tears were considered sources of life and renewal. Under Huitzilopochtli's rule, the Earth was turned into an underwater world. Vast oceans stretched as far as the eye could see, peppered with scattered islands that served as a refuge for life. The flooding rains of the previous era gave way to a milder, wetter climate, perfect for aquatic life to thrive. Fish of all colors and sizes were swimming in abundance, while algae and corals formed true underwater gardens. Humanity, specially designed by Quetzalcoatl for this new world, was adapted to aquatic life. Their bodies were slender and agile, with fin-like limbs that enabled them to swim with dexterity. Their eyes were large and luminous, capable of seeing into the ocean depths. They all lived in harmony with the water, building their homes on coral reefs and feeding on the fish and sea plants that abounded in the oceans. The Age of Water was a beautiful and mysterious world. The deep ocean hid ancient secrets and extraordinary creatures. In their quest for food and adventure, humans explored coral reefs, underwater caves, and the abyssal depths. They grew a deep connection with water, learning to respect its power and harness its resources. Notwithstanding its beauty and abundance, the Age of Water was a short-lived period in the history of the Aztec cosmos. With its ever-changing sea currents and the looming threat of tsunamis, the submerged world's volatility made life precarious and unreliable. The harmony between humanity and water was continually tested, requiring adaptation and resilience. After just a few years of relative peace and prosperity, the destiny of the Age of Waters was abruptly and violently fulfilled. The sky burst open, and a torrential rain of blood fell upon the earth. Rivers and oceans were tinged red, and aquatic life perished en masse. The bloody deluge was an unprecedented cataclysm, sweeping away everything in its way and rendering the submerged world a landscape of horror and desolation. Trapped by the raging fury of nature, humanity desperately struggled to survive. Some, acting out of desperation, tried to find shelter on the few remaining islands, while others clung to floating debris in the hope of escaping the bloody flood. Yet the bulk of humanity was not as fortunate. Despite the chaos and destruction, a few humans managed to escape the flood by climbing tall, leafy trees. They grabbed onto the branches as the water rose, struggling to keep their hopes alive. The transformation was inevitable, however. The powerful water and the magic of the goddess Huitzilopochtli changed them into monkeys, agile and adaptable creatures, capable of surviving in the trees and eating fruit and leaves. The Age of Water ended tragically, signaling the closure of yet another cosmic cycle. The destruction of humanity and the downfall of Huitzilopochtli left a trail of sadness and desolation. But the survival of the apes, descendants of those who sought refuge in the trees, lit a fire of hope for the future. Once the fourth world had been destroyed, the gods met in Teotihuacan, the sacred city of creation, to decide on the need for a new sacrifice. Darkness reigned over the earth, while the absence of a sun harbored the threat of chaos and disorder. Once again, the gods knew that, to restore light and life to the world, one of them had to sacrifice himself and become the fifth sun. Teotihuacan was a spiritual powerhouse, and the perfect setting for this creative act. Its towering pyramids, consecrated to the sun and moon, rose towards the sky like silent witnesses to cosmic history. A sacred brazier burned in the center of the city, representing the heart of the universe and the source of life. The gods met around the fire, debating who among them would be worthy and brave enough to shoulder the responsibility of becoming the new sun. The fate of the world rested on this decision, and the air was tense as the gods pondered their options. Two gods stood as candidates: the rich and proud Tenochtitlan and the humble and sore-covered Nanahuatzin. Tenochtitlan, who trusted that his beauty and power would be a supreme sacrifice, promptly offered himself for it, while Nanahuatzin, with his humility and devotion, took on the task as a sacred duty. A great sacrificial pyre was built in the center of Teotihuacan, its flames crackling and dancing under the night sky. For 4 days and nights, Tenochtitlan and Nanahuatzin fasted and undertook acts of penance in preparation for the crucial moment. The rich god Tenochtitlan dressed himself in luxurious jade, gold, and quetzal feathers, while the humble god Nanahuatzin only offered reeds, magui thorns tainted with his own blood, and scabs from his wounds. Tenochtitlan, proud of his beauty and wealth, was the first to be called. He ran towards the flames, but their intense heat and sight made him step back. He tried 4 times, and 4 times fear took hold of him. Nanahuatzin then, with a heart overflowing with courage and determination, closed his eyes and threw himself into the fire. His body roared and burned intensely, and when the flames were extinguished, the sun rose in the east, radiant and powerful. When he saw Nanahuatzin's courage, an embarrassed Tenochtitlan finally climbed into the fire, but his glow had already subsided. He became the moon, Metzli, pale in comparison to the sun. Nanahuatzin's sacrifice and Tenochtitlan's dithering explain not only the creation of the 5th sun Tonatiuh, but also the brightness gap between the sun and the moon. Nanahuatzin's courage rendered him worthy of becoming the sun, while Tenochtitlan's hesitation condemned him to the role of the moon, a less bright star. Much of the world remained underwater, and the existence of Huitzilopochtli, a monstrous goddess who epitomized the earth itself, posed an insurmountable obstacle to the creation of the earth. Huitzilopochtli was a frightening creature, with multiple mouths spread across its body, each one filled with razor-sharp teeth. Its craving for human flesh was insatiable, and it devoured everything the gods created, stopping the formation of a stable, habitable world. The earth trembled under its footsteps, and its roars echoed through the depths, instilling fear among beings who dared to venture into its domain. Every effort by the gods to create life was foiled by the voracious hunger of the monstrous goddess, who devoured everything in her path. The earth was a constantly raging battleground between creation and destruction, and life struggled to gain a foothold among the chaos. Fearful about the situation, the gods met to discuss how to surmount this obstacle. The feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl and the god of the night Tezcatlipoca led the search for a solution. They knew that the establishment of the earth would only be possible if Huitzilopochtli was defeated, and for that, they would have to use all their cunning and power. Once the 5th sun had been raised, the gods, worried about Huitzilopochtli's apocalyptic threat, met in a council to find a solution. The destiny of the world dangled in the scales, as the creation of the earth and the establishment of cosmic order were hopeless if the monstrous creature kept devouring everything it came across. The feathered serpent Quetzalcoatl and the god of the night Tezcatlipoca were the most powerful deities, and the best suited to face the threat. In a brave act of sacrifice, they decided to band together to defeat the monstrous creature and establish a world where life could flourish. Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca's choice to face Huitzilopochtli was not taken lightly. They knew that the battle would be perilous and that their own lives would be at risk, but humanity and the future of the cosmos relied on their courage. Changing Quetzalcoatl and Tezcatlipoca into giant serpents was a magical and impressive process. Their bodies stretched and contorted, their skins covered in shiny scales. Quetzalcoatl's serpent was as bright green as emerald, symbolizing life and renewal, while Tezcatlipoca's serpent was as black as night, standing for darkness and power. Standing together, they became an unstoppable force, primed to confront the monstrous Tlaltecutli and create a new world out of chaos. The battle against Tlaltecutli was a titanic clash that echoed throughout the cosmos. With their huge, scaly bodies, the two divine serpents charged at the primordial goddess. With her many gaping mouths bristling with razor-sharp obsidian teeth, the goddess roared and struggled, attempting in vain to free herself from the serpent's deadly embrace. Its gigantic limbs, each with claws that could tear through mountains, struck the air and water, spreading gigantic waves that could engulf the whole world. The sky turned into a turmoil of black clouds, lightning and thunder, reflecting the fury of the battle raging below. The serpent, its feathers gleaming like emeralds, wrapped itself around Tlaltecutli's torso, squeezing her body with supernatural strength. The night black serpent clawed at the goddess's limbs, its teeth sinking into the monstrous flesh and tearing chunks out of her breastplate. Tlaltecutli's blood spurted out like a river, reddening the ocean waters. The battle raged for eons, a gruesome dance of destruction and creation. Finally, depleted and wounded, Tlaltecutli collapsed to the combined strength of the snake gods. With a final agonized roar, her gigantic body broke into pieces, scattering across the cosmos. A new world emerged from the remains of Tlaltecutli, keenly aware of the need to populate the earth with beings who could care for it and honor the gods. Quetzalcoatl decided to descend into Mictlan, the Aztec underworld, to find the bones of previous humanity. The realm of the dead Mictlan was a dark and perilous place, ruled by Mictlantecutli and Mictequihuatl, ruthless gods who protected their domains with zeal. The journey would be hard and riddled with challenges, but Quetzalcoatl was determined to accomplish his mission, even if it meant facing the dangers of the underworld. As Quetzalcoatl descended into Mictlan, the journey was an epic odyssey, fraught with obstacles and trials. He crossed blood rivers infested with demonic creatures. He had to travel through bone deserts, where the wind howled like lost souls, and climb steep mountains, whose peaks were lost deep in the misty eternity. The Lords of Death attempted to stop him in every way, laying traps and challenges in his path, including dead-end labyrinths, bottomless chasms, and ferocious beasts guarding secret passages. However, Quetzalcoatl, with his wit and wisdom, managed to overcome all obstacles. He fooled the demons with his words, soothed the beasts with his music, and found his way through the labyrinths with the help of his insight and knowledge. Upon arriving at the palace of Mictlantecutli, the god of death, Quetzalcoatl requested the bones of former humanity, saying that they were essential to bring life back into the world. Unsure of Quetzalcoatl's intentions, Mictlantecutli laid down a seemingly impossible condition. The god of life had to blow a conch shell without holes and generate a melodious sound. With his resourcefulness, Quetzalcoatl gathered worms to pierce the shell and bees to produce the sound, deceiving the god of death and obtaining the precious bones. Quetzalcoatl gathered the bone fragments and returned to the surface, carrying with him the hope of a new beginning. He grinded the bones into powder with the help of other gods, mixed them with his own divine blood and sacred maize, the food that nourishes life. He shaped the figures of the first men and women, giving them life with his sacred breath. The new humanity was thus born, the fruit of the union between the divine and the earthly, life and death. Maize, a symbol of the fertility and abundance of the earth, together with ancestral bones, representing the continuity of life, joined Quetzalcoatl's divine blood to create beings gifted with intelligence, creativity, and the ability to love. The previously empty and silent earth was flooded with life and joy, and humanity began its journey in this new world, eager to face the challenges and celebrate the marvels of existence. The establishment of the earth, nonetheless, did not mean the end of Tlaltecutli's influence. Her thirst for human flesh, while momentarily assuaged by the sacrifice of the gods, remained a latent force in nature. The earth trembled with her hungry sighs, and her sorrowful groans manifested themselves in volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. To placate the hungry goddess, humans offered blood sacrifices, an eternal pact between humankind and the earth, guaranteeing the fertility and prosperity of the world. The Aztecs believed that the sun had to be constantly fed with blood and human sacrifices to keep it moving and prevent the destruction of the world. This led to the practice of large-scale human sacrifices, which became a central part of Aztec religion and culture. The creation of the fifth sun and the establishment of the daily cycle heralded the beginning of the current era in which we live, the Nahui Olan, the Age of Movement. Continuous sacrifices were needed to maintain the movement of the sun and guarantee cosmic order. As far as the Aztecs were concerned, human sacrifice was seen as an act of devotion and gratitude to the gods, needed to uphold the balance of the universe and guarantee the survival of humanity. Driven by his compassion and wisdom, Quetzalcoatl decided to give humanity a food that not only sustained them, but also brought them joy and strength. This was maize, the sacred sustenance offered by the gods as a gift to humanity. Magui, the plant that originated the pulque drink, was another gift from the gods. The sacred beverage cheered the spirit and connected them with the spirit world. The Aztecs knew that the fifth sun destruction was inevitable. This belief was deeply rooted in their worldview, in which they perceived time as a succession of eras, each destined to end in catastrophe. But they did not passively accept this fate. On the contrary, the Aztecs believed that they could postpone the end of the world through sacrifices and rituals. The offering of human blood, particularly that of warriors captured in battle, was regarded as a means of nourishing and strengthening the sun, ensuring its daily journey through the sky. They believed that, once the fifth sun was destroyed, a new cosmic cycle would begin, with the emergence of a new sun and era. The exact nature of this new age and how it would manifest itself remain a mystery, as the Aztec myths provided no details about what would come after the fifth sun. This belief in the inevitable end of the world and the rebirth of a new cycle reflects the Aztecs' profound connection with the cyclical nature of time and their understanding of the impermanence of existence. To them, life was a continuous cycle of creation and destruction, with the end of one cycle being merely the precursor for another to begin.
Huitzilopochtli was known as the god of the sun and war. He was most frequently portrayed as an armed warrior, representing both the sun's ceaseless march across the sky and the Aztecs' bellicose nature. The god was often portrayed with ornaments to symbolize the sun and war, such as a solar disk, a spear, and a shield ornamented with hummingbird feathers. He was also known for his bird colors, such as blue and green. Among some of the most famous myths surrounding Huitzilopochtli is that of his birth. He was conceived by Coatlique, the goddess of the earth. When Coatlique became miraculously pregnant, her other children, led by her daughter Coyoxauhqui, planned to kill her. And yet, Huitzilopochtli emerged fully formed and armed from Coatlique's womb and stood up for his mother, defeating his brothers, something that epitomizes the victory of the sun over the night. As a sun god, Huitzilopochtli was tied to the sun's daily cycle and the idea that it battled against the night forces to be reborn each and every morning. As a war god, he served as the Aztecs' warriors' patron and protector, and his cult was inherently tied to military expansion and battlefield success. One of the most well-known myths about this god reveals that the Aztecs were a nomadic and warlike people, and Huitzilopochtli, their patron and guiding god, advised them to leave the Aztlan region and seek a new home. Huitzilopochtli promised the Aztecs that they would find their promised land, where they would set up a vast empire. And he gave them a specific sign to look for, an eagle resting on a nopal cactus, devouring a snake. This would be the heart of their new empire and the place to build their great city. The Aztecs' migration was long and arduous, marred by several halts and conflicts along the way. Throughout their journey, Huitzilopochtli guided and protected his people, providing advice and instructions through priests and visions. Ultimately, following years of pilgrimage, the Aztecs reached the Valley of Mexico, a fertile valley with a great central lake. There, they saw the sign Huitzilopochtli had spoken of. the eagle on a cactus with a serpent in its claws. This was seen on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. The Aztecs understood this as divine guidance to establish their city Tenochtitlan, which would become the Aztec Empire's capital and one of the largest cities in the pre-Columbian world. The image of the eagle, cactus, and serpent turned into a mighty symbol for the Aztecs, standing for their divine mission and destiny, and is today the centerpiece of Mexico's coat of arms. The Aztecs believed that Huitzilopochtli needed human sacrifices to keep moving through the sky, maintaining the world in motion and driving away darkness. Many ceremonies and sacrifices were held in his honor, particularly during the winter solstice, his sacred month. Worship of Huitzilopochtli sat at the very heart of Aztec religion and identity. He was seen as the Aztec people's guide and protector, a central figure in their mythology and religious customs. His influence was felt both in day-to-day life and in the Aztec Empire's major political and military decisions. Templo Mayor, the great shrine in the Aztec capital Tenochtitlan, had one of its two altars entirely dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, showing his enormous significance for the Aztecs. The cult of Huitzilopochtli had a considerable role in expanding and maintaining the Aztec Empire, and his image is still a powerful symbol of Aztec culture and history.
Quetzalcoatl is the famous feathered serpent of Aztec mythology. He is a powerful deity with the power to control the wind and a wealth of wisdom. He was considered a god of many things: knowledge, agriculture, arts, music, and poetry. His divine powers included the ability to create and destroy, to give life and to take it away. He was also a token of renewal and transformation, for serpents change their skin, symbolizing a new beginning. In Aztec mythology, Quetzalcoatl was one of the most important gods because he was a hybrid creature with a dual nature. He was considered a god of heaven and earth. Quetzalcoatl's feathered aspect represents his connection to heaven, and the fact that he is a serpent associates him with the earth. The cult of Quetzalcoatl was one of the most widespread and longest-running in Mesoamerica. His image can be found on many artifacts and works of art from the region. There were temples dedicated to Quetzalcoatl in many Aztec cities, including the Templo Mayor in Mexico City. In Aztec culture, he was associated with the notion of an ideal and righteous ruler, capable of governing with wisdom and justice. Quetzalcoatl was known to be peaceful and benevolent. He was considered a symbol of civilization and culture. However, according to late legends, he was eventually driven out of the Aztec Empire by his enemies and promised to return one day to regain his throne. This promise was seen by some as a prophecy by the Spanish conquistadors, who were initially mistaken for Quetzalcoatl and his followers. His image and symbolism remain important to many Mesoamerican peoples to this day. His influence can be seen in many cultural traditions and practices in the region.
Mictlantecutli is one of Aztec mythology's darkest and most powerful creatures, Lord of Mictlan, the realm of the dead. His name literally means Lord of Mictlan in Nahuatl, the Aztec tongue, and is known as the god of death and the underworld, a high-ranking member of the Aztec pantheon. The god governed the underworld, the final destination of souls upon death, according to Aztec cosmology. The Mictlan was said to be a final resting place, nestled at the deepest level of the underworld, and all souls, despite their status or behavior in life, eventually descended into the Mictlan after death, except those who died in particularly honorable ways. Mictlantecutli appears usually as a skeleton or as a human being with bare skin, decked out with underworld jewelry and decorations. He is often pictured with a crown, claws, and exposed bones, symbolizing his connection with death and decay. He has a female counterpart and wife, Mictecacihuatl, referred to as the Lady of Mictlan. They preside over the world of the dead together and are in charge of looking after the souls that arrive there. Mictlantecutli holds a leading role over the creation myth of the Aztecs world, known as the Fifth Sun. When Quetzalcoatl heads down to Mictlan to reclaim the bones of ancient human beings to form the new humanity, Mictlantecutli initially gives him permission to do so, but then tries to prevent him from escaping, illustrating the god of death's erratic and volatile nature. As the god of death, Mictlantecutli was both feared and revered as a vital figure to the universe's order. The Aztecs did not see death as an end, but as a transitional phase in the eternal life circle. So, Mictlantecutli was a key figure in the Aztec understanding of the afterlife and the cycle of existence. The god represents the unavoidable demise of all living things and the certainty of death. Notwithstanding his association with dark themes, he is an essential part of the cosmic balance and plays a crucial role in Aztec mythology and religion. Xochiquetzal is the goddess of beauty, love, fertility, flowers, and vegetation in Aztec mythology. Her name means precious feather flower. She was often depicted as a beautiful young goddess, festooned with flowers, feathers, and precious jewels. As the goddess of love and sexuality, Xochiquetzal stands for life's joyful and creative aspects, fostering passion and desire. She is also the protector of young women and pregnancy, granting fertility and helping with childbirth. Xochiquetzal was greatly worshipped, with many rituals and ceremonies being dedicated to her, particularly those involving love and marriage. Flowers were often used in celebrations and rituals in her honor, representing the ephemeral nature of beauty and the growth and renewal potential. The goddess not only ruled over love and beauty, but also the arts, including weaving, important activities in the Aztecs' daily lives. She promoted artistic creation and was seen as a patron saint of craftswomen and artists. Xochiquetzal was also named in legends involving her marriages to several gods, reflecting her role as goddess of fertility and procreation. She first married the god of the rising sun, Quetzalcoatl, but then split up and married the god of rain, Tlaloc. Some myths claim that the goddess was in need of more sexual satisfaction than her husband could provide, so the god of the night sky, Tezcatlipoca, became her lover. Other myths, however, state that Tezcatlipoca kidnapped her. The myths around Xochiquetzal have significant cultural ramifications, since she is seen as the protector of women, particularly those who are pregnant or in labor. Her story also echoes the Aztec belief that beauty and sexuality are powerful, divine forces that should be represented and honored. Xochiquetzal is a goddess who celebrated life in the most joyful and creative forms. She epitomizes the ability to love, create, and appreciate beauty in all its forms. Known as the Lord of the Smoking Mirror, Tezcatlipoca, the Aztec god of the night sky, the moon, and the stars. He was the Lord of fire and death, the god of fate, war, and sorcery, often portrayed as a ferocious and unpredictable deity who could bring good fortune and calamity to his followers. The god had a deep connection with the jaguar, his sacred animal. The jaguar is a nocturnal and vicious animal, known for its strength, hunting dexterity, and its ability to move silently in the dark. These features run in tandem with many of Tezcatlipoca's traits as a god of the night, mystery, magic, and war. He was the patron of rulers and warriors, benefiting those who displayed bravery and honor in battle. The cult of Tezcatlipoca featured elaborate ceremonies and sacrifices. He was honored with festivals and rituals involving human sacrifices, deemed necessary to placate his thirst for war and conflict. Rituals and ceremonies devoted to Tezcatlipoca often surrounded the jaguar symbolism, including the donning of jaguar skins by priests and warriors during festivals and sacrifices. Tezcatlipoca and Quetzalcoatl were often portrayed as opponents, symbolizing conflicting and complementary forces within the universe. Tezcatlipoca is associated with darkness, night, and the material, while Quetzalcoatl is associated with light, day, and the spiritual. This is similar to the concepts such as yin and yang in Chinese philosophy, or yin and yang, where two competing forces are mutually dependent and necessary for the universe's harmony. Both are seen as the world's creators and destroyers. They actively take part in the creation and destruction cycles in Aztec cosmology. They work together to bring about the world and humanity in multiple myths, and they can be found in collision, resulting in the cosmos' destruction and cyclical renewal. Huitzilopochtli and Quetzalcoatl were a pair of opposing and essential forces in the Aztec world and society. They stood for the tension required to achieve progress and continuity in life and the cosmos. Xolotl stands as a fascinating creature in Aztec mythology. He is most commonly associated with fire and lightning, and known as the god of transformation, twins, and illnesses, particularly malformations. Xolotl is a crucial creature in Aztec mythology, being the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent god. Among his most important duties is to guide the sun across the underworld every night. This is regarded as a journey through darkness and danger, before rising again each morning. This connects him with renewal and transformation. He is most often depicted as a creature with a dog's head, echoing his ties to death and the underworld. This shape also binds him to Huitzilopochtli, a Mexican dog breed. After death, the Aztecs believed that the souls would embark on a challenging and complex journey to reach the underworld known as Mictlan. This was filled with perils and challenges, and the souls had no effortless way of completing it without help. Xolotl, frequently depicted with dog-like feathers, was regarded as the soul's guide on this journey. The connection between Xolotl and dogs is no accident. The native Huitzilopochtli race enjoyed a strong spiritual connection with the realm of the dead and could guide souls through the underworld. This belief is mirrored in the relationship between Xolotl and the dogs, found in some religious and artistic expressions. Xolotl guided the souls, helping them to cross the Mictlan's numerous obstacles and dangers. Xolotl's presence and help were essential to make sure that the souls arrived at their final destination in the world of the dead. The Aztec myth of humanity's creation said that after the fourth sun's destruction and the beginning of the fifth sun, the gods acknowledged the need to create human beings to inhabit the earth. Nevertheless, at that point, all previous humans had been turned into fish following the catastrophe that ended the previous era. Quetzalcoatl and Xolotl undertook a journey to Mictlan, the Aztec underworld, to collect the bones of ancient human beings to repopulate the earth. These were used to build the new human race. Mictlan's lord, Tenochtitlan, at first agreed to hand over the bones, but then tried to trick Quetzalcoatl and Xolotl by obstructing their way back. When the bones were recovered and brought to the surface, they still had to be brought back to life. Xolotl helped Quetzalcoatl to carry out the ritual, which involved blood sacrifice. The gods shed their own blood to revive the new beings, who emerged as a result of the god's sacred blood sacrifice. Xolotl is therefore not only associated with transformation and the underworld, but also plays a crucial role in creating and renewing humanity in Aztec mythology. The god was also present at the hatching of the fifth sun, which in Aztec beliefs would start a new era. For this, Xolotl aided two gods in sacrificing themselves to give birth to the sun and the moon. After both gods gave birth to the new stars, they noticed that Xolotl also needed to sacrifice himself to make the sun move. Fearing the sacrifice, he ran away. He changed into different forms to escape the sacrifice, first into a corn plant, then into a maguey plant, and finally into an axolotl, a type of salamander. He was discovered despite all his cover-ups and was finally captured and sacrificed. His sacrifice gave rise to the sun's motion and the continuity of life. This myth implies that, regardless of his attempts to escape, Xolotl could not evade his role in the universe. His capture and ensuing sacrifice are seen as essential for the cosmos to function and for the order and balance of the world to be maintained. Micteca is the goddess and queen of Mictlan, Aztec mythology's underworld. Her role adds to that of her husband, Tenochtitlan, the lord of the realm of the dead. They rule the underworld together, overseeing the incoming souls to their domain, not a tormenting site, but a final resting place for souls. Their job is to make sure that the dead are properly cared for and that they have everything they need on the way to the afterlife. The goddess was portrayed as a skeletal figure with a skull crown and a bone skirt. He held a scepter or mirror, reflecting the true nature of a person's soul. The cult of Micteca comprised rituals and offerings to honor the dead. Her celebrations serve to recognize death as an essential part of life. While there are not as many details about the specific rituals dedicated to her as there are for other Aztec deities, her presence in the Aztec pantheon was crucial to understanding the afterlife. As Queen of Mictlan, Mictecacihuatl not only represents death, but also memory and care for the departed. Mictecacihuatl was often connected to the modern Mexican Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. This celebration, combining indigenous and Catholic traditions, honors and remembers the dead. As protector of the dead, Mictecacihuatl is seen as a bridge between ancient traditions and contemporary practices of ancestor veneration. One of the oldest and most meaningful gods in Mesoamerican mythology, Tlaloc, was worshipped by several cultures besides the Aztecs, such as the Toltecs and Teotihuacan. In Aztec religion, Tlaloc is the god of rain, water, fertility, and lightning and storms. A powerful deity, he is vital for agriculture and the growth of crops, as well as life in general. Tlaloc is often portrayed with blue skin, ring-shaped eyes, and huge fangs in his smile, representing his power and his connection to water and rain. He is known for having a lightning staff with him, used to spark storms, thunder, and rain. He is often partnered with a group of lesser deities known as Tlaloques, serving as his helpers and tasked with spreading the rain. He is also linked to Huitzilopochtli, the goddess of running water and springs, considered to be his wife or sister in different myth versions. Tlaloc's cult was hugely relevant to the Aztecs, who depended on the rain to grow their crops. He was paid tribute to in annual and lavish festivals, where offerings and sacrifices were made in an effort to secure plentiful rainfall and to protect the communities from droughts or floods. Sacrifices to Tlaloc were performed with the hope of obtaining sufficient rainfall for the crops. Unfortunately, these sacrifices sometimes included children, as it was believed that their tears were a harbinger of rain. Such rituals were conducted with the belief that human suffering could sway the gods to be merciful and provide rain. Tlaloc's Great Flood is one of the most tragic myths associated with him. Distraught with humanity, Tlaloc sent heavy rains that flooded the world, destroying civilization and turning human beings into fish. This myth represents the destruction and cyclical renewal of the world, a common theme in Aztec mythology. Tlaloc is an important figure to understand the relationship between the Aztecs and their natural surroundings. He evokes the power of nature and the belief that the gods exert a direct influence on the elements vital to human survival. Devotion to Tlaloc expresses the Aztecs' awe and reverence for nature's power and unpredictability. Coatlique, known as Snake's Her Skirt by the Aztecs, is one of the most powerful and important goddesses in Aztec mythology. She is the goddess of the earth, fertility, life, and death, representing nature's duality, capable of generating and destroying. She was often portrayed wearing a snake skirt and a necklace made of human hands and hearts. This terrifying collar represented the earth, which devours everything it produces. She is also portrayed with sagging breasts as a symbol of nourishment and breastfeeding. Her face is frequently shaped like two face-to-face serpents, symbolizing the earth and the sky. Coatlique's cult was part of Aztec religion, and she was venerated as the mother of gods and human beings. As goddess of the earth, she was both the source of life and the host of the dead. Coatlique was feared and respected, epitomizing the unstoppable and often brutal power of nature. The goddess symbolized the earth's ability to generate and destroy life. She stood for nature in its rawest form and the reality of life and death as mutually exclusive elements. Her figure reveals the Aztecs' profound relationship with the earth and nature, and their respect and awe for life and death. Coatlique's figure is one of the most iconic in Aztec art, mirroring the complexity of their mythology and the significance of the goddess in society. She continues to be a powerful figure in Mexican culture, standing for strength, motherhood, and the power of nature.